Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, I can't believe that this is basically the last game of the regular season. So, instead of kind of going through the highlights like we normally do and kind of like breaking down each goal and kind of dissecting that, I thought it'd be good to kind of go over some of the highlights and just kind of give my overall thoughts about how the season went. And after we watch the highlights, we're going to go ahead and just kind of compare our team stats from last year to this year, and also our personal stats from last year to this year. Kind of like see how we did and if we improved at all over the course of the year. And it's always kind of fun to kind of like look at those stats, even though I know rec league, doesn't really matter, and some of the stats are probably like inaccurate. But we'll work with what we got. So, let me know in the comments below, do stats matter to you? Do you track any of that kind of stuff? Does your league track any of that at all? Does it affect how you play each time you get on the ice? I'd definitely like to hear, what you think about that. So anyways, let's go into the final game of the season. Let's jump into that first period. So going into this fall season, I had actually played summer hockey for like the first time ever. I usually don't play hockey at all during the summer and just kind of just jump into the fall season cold. But this time I actually played a bunch in the summer, did a bunch of training as well too. So going into this fall season, I don't really want to say I had high expectations, but I did expect myself to perform better than the other years. One thing that kind of threw me off guard was I actually didn't expect that our division had actually got a lot stronger over the offseason, as each team definitely added more skilled players. So in my opinion, the competition was a lot higher this season than the previous. So the big question is, am I happy how the season went and how I played? I think I played below my expectations, but because, again, the division was a lot faster this year, if I hadn't done that work in the summertime, I definitely would have felt a little bit behind with the division if I didn't do that. What I'm not happy about is how I wasn't really able to like steal many games for the team. For example, there's always like a play or two that I kind of like misplay that I wish I could have had that totally prevented us from winning more games. So there's one thing that I could have done differently this fall season was to actually get my equipment sorted out preseason. So definitely changing those skates like midway through the season definitely kind of changed how I had to like play and kind of get used to my new skates. As awesome as they are, changing gear midway through a season is never an easy thing to adjust to. And obviously I've been playing around with different pad sizes in the last month, and that's actually made a really big difference. I wish I would have done that again at the beginning of the season or during the summertime to kind of figure that out. But things don't always go as planned. And because I'm an old man now and I need my sleep, I think one of my biggest gripes about this year is I think more than half our games were 10 o'clock plus evening games. I don't even remember the last time we played a game where it actually felt refreshed or we had a proper roster, because games are just way too late for us nowadays, unfortunately, now that we're older. How do I think the team's going to do in the playoffs? Well, I definitely feel that for our team to have success in the playoffs, I really need to clean up those misplays and lapses. It's definitely going to be a busy playoffs for me. I've been facing, I think, 40 plus shots for the last handful of games. So I'll definitely need to prepare for each of these matchups. I still think anyone can take it during the playoffs because we've actually beaten all the top teams in the division during the season. So, we'll see how it goes. So not the greatest end to the season. We lost that game. I think it was 6-4. We did have like a 3-1 lead after the first period, but we kind of blew that again. Unfortunately, we're going into the playoffs on a 3-game losing streak. So we ended up being second last in the division. The playoffs format for this league is going to be like a round robin type of thing. And we definitely have the 3, I think, top teams to play against. So it's going to be pretty interesting playoffs. Hopefully things turn out well for us. So one of the things that I want to talk about when it comes to like stats, especially when it comes to rec league and things like that, I think when your team plays well, your stats will reflect that. So you usually have better stats playing on a better team. So I know that the stats tracking in our league, the organizer did tell me that he was pretty confident when people count the shots during the games. They're pretty accurate. I did a video about this a while ago and I found out that the shots are pretty off, to be honest. But I think it really depends on what time the game is and who's actually doing the scorekeeping. So, we're just gonna work with what we have. We'll just take the stats as is and, do a little bit of comparison from last season to this season. See how the team did in comparison to this season and how that actually kind of reflected on my personal stats as a goalie. Of course, as a goalie, you obviously want your team to win, but I think in the back of our heads, we always love that kind of like personal save percentage and things like that. So let's go check it out. So let's first see how our team, the Direwolves, did in the 2023-24 season. So we finished off last season in second place in our division out of 6 teams. So out of 19 games played, we had 10 wins, 6 losses, 1 overtime loss, and 2 ties. And that was good enough for second place out of the 6 teams. Compared to this season, we actually finished 5th out of the 6 teams with a record of 8 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. And that's over 17 games played. I think they kind of changed a bit of the format this year where we only had 17 games for the fall season. So a pretty significant drop in the overall team standings. I mentioned earlier that the division did feel like it picked up its pace a little bit, had a lot of better shooters this year. Obviously as a team, we're not too happy with where we're placed, especially it kind of makes the playoff round a little bit more difficult. But anyways, let's have a look at our personal goalie stats. So last year I played 18 games and I finished off last season with a goals against of 3.35 and a save percentage of 88%. Compared to this season, where I only played 15 games with a goals against of 4.31 and a save percentage of 871. Now the interesting thing, between the personal stats that I'm showing here is they're pretty similar, except that I played 3 less games this year. If you look at the shots against, that's a pretty big discrepancy. So last year we faced 507 versus this year was 504, but over 3 less games. So on average, I was facing about, I think, 5 or 6 more shots per game. When it comes to the save percentage, we only dropped like 1% to 87. And in comparison to the rest of the goalies in the division, the top guy is at a .89 save percentage. So with that in mind and kind of like looking at other goalies, I felt like it was, pretty good overall this season. The one thing that I'm not happy with, obviously, is the goals against per game. So we basically increased the goal against 1 goal per game. So last year was sitting at 3.35 goals against average. This year was a whopping like 4.31, and I think that's probably like the worst goals against average I've had like in the years I've been playing in this league. And I really think that, if I was able to kind of stay focused within some of these games where I let in like 1 or 2 stinkers where I kind of misplayed it, I felt like our season could have gone a different path. We could have picked up a couple more wins here and there. And with the division actually getting a lot stronger this year, I'm not too bummed out about the stats. Obviously the goals against is probably one of the bigger ones, but my save percentage is still kind of like the same as last year. Definitely a lot heavier workload this season, as you can tell from the shots against. I definitely know that going into the playoffs, I'm probably going to face about 40 plus shots a night. So I'm definitely going to have to make sure that I get my rest, my food, and my naps in there before I jump on the ice at those 10:30 games. And I even remember from last season, there was a time where I was letting in, like 1 or 2 stinkers. And during the playoffs, I made it my goal to like really just try to stay focused and just like make sure that I stop everything that I should save and then make a couple more that I shouldn't, and really just make sure that if I do let in goal, it's a really good shot or a really good passing play and I have almost no chance to get. I can't be misplaying the puck like I have been in the last handful of games. So anyways, we do have our first playoff game coming up right around the corner against a really, really good team. I think it's going to be a lot of good content coming from these games, so definitely stay tuned for that. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the playoffs on the ice in the next video.